Yo, what is good people? I apologize for being tardy, but we have a sickness in the family and it struck as I was coming to get prepared. But we're here, we're good, and I've got an awesome, amazing guest on for this evening. This is actually the first creator that I'll have on this show collecting Uncensored. So I'm super excited about that. Fellow community member and collector Brian LCS, and we're going to try and dive deep into his short boxes, long boxes, whichever kind of boxes he's got, and see how he collects. So, without further ado, let me go ahead and let me bring him on out. Let's see how he dances, y'all. Let's see how he dances. Yes.
That's a great intro.
Thank you. I like your dance style. You got some nice moves. Nice moves
Yeah.
there, Brian. Nice moves.
Yeah, I dressed up in that clip too.
Right? Right? Oh, all right. Let's say hello to chat before we start diving in, Brian. We got
Sure.
Las Cruces like always with his
Yeah.
hooray, wahoo, and hello from New Mexico. Good evening, Las Cruces from Alabama and South Carolina. So, we've got yourself. You've already said hello. Thank you for letting everybody know. Appreciate that. I don't know. You'd have to ask my wife. I don't know. I don't know what kind of behind I have actually. I don't have a badonkadonk. I'll say that. Like,
Yeah. My wife describes my legs as chicken legs.
nice. Oh, that is what I'm hearing. There's Mr. Akins, my fellow statesman right there. Iron Brethren. Manny the Hobgoblin Collector, what's going on, man? Thank you for coming and hanging out with us this evening. Darn Alabama internet. See, the internet's actually acting fine right now. For right now, you never know what it's going to do. Though.
Yeah,
Let's
let's
be
not
honest.
jinx it. Yeah.
Right. Jonathan Collectibles Astonished, what's going on, man? Thank you for coming.
And you were like a magnet for Jonathan. Every time I see Jonathan, it's on your channel.
Yes, yes, I love Jonathan. He's awesome. We went all Star Wars. I wore this, by the way, for you and got the glass for you. So I'm so
yeah, I
glad.
wanted the Star Wars shirt too. Yeah.
This is the Star Wars stream tonight, y'all. Nice. Let's see. Bottom tier collector, fellow statesman here. Gonna put the kids down and get this on my TV. Yes, I'm TV worthy. Love it. Well, I guess Brian, you're TV worthy. So.
Yeah, I don't know if you want to see me on the big screen. I don't know about that.
Mod Comments, what's going on, Brandon? Thank you for coming out. Said, man, I knew Mr. Akins was gonna be here. That's great. Cool. All right. I'm sure others will trickle in as we're talking, and we'll say hello to them as well. But the main thing is, Brian, we as collectors love all kinds of things in this hobby, whether it be covers or reading the stories or collecting runs or just certain characters. And of course, like, we can sit there and all have, multiples of these things in our collections.
Mm-hmm.
But the question is, how do you collect, Brian? What is it that gets your PC going?
I'm really character driven. Spider-Man's my guy, so it's if there's Spider-Man in it, I'm most likely going to pick it up, because I've always had a love for the character, and so when I started collecting, as a teenager, that's really, I just landed there, with Spider-Man books, and would pick up some other books here and there. And I actually had a friend and his older brother who were collectors. They were really into comics. And, I was just, I'd look at the art and be aware of the quality of the art, but didn't know any of the creators, like who the artist, I wasn't paying attention.
Yeah.
But I had some comic book friends, growing up, that my one friend was an artist. And still is an artist, and so he was tuned into the art and who the artist was, and they kind of turned me on to like John Byrne, and because they were big Fantastic Four and Thor fans, and so they kind of pointed me in that John Byrne direction and kind of was showing me, some of the artwork, and then I started to notice more art, and then started following artists. So I started picking up John Byrne work, Alpha Flight.
Yeah.
In Thor, and he was on a run of Fantastic Four, and so I started to get into following artists as well. But now today, I took a break for a long time, and now today, I'm back to Spider-Man, of course, and then it's really been recommendations, word of mouth from the community, like, oh, this is a good read, this is a good story.
Mm,
And so I've been picking up some books like that, not really focused on artist or particular writers.
okay.
Um, I think today there are so many different artists. There's so many artists compared
Yes.
to, you know, 30 years ago, where I think it was a smaller group that worked on comic books. So they were more recognizable because they doing work consistently. Where today, you have artists who just do covers,
Right.
so there's a little bit of a difference. So, and I was thinking about this because I knew you were going to ask this question. Is like, I haven't locked in on a favorite like artist or writer
Okay.
since I've been back in,
Yeah.
because I just, unfortunately, a lot of the Spider-Man books haven't been very good. So, um, I think that's part of it. Um, so it's an interesting question today, because like I said, I don't feel like I say, well, if I follow a particular artist or writer, that I pick up everything from that creator, because I'm not there yet with a writer or an artist.
Right. Right. So so when you sit there and you say, that you're like, I think we all know that you're a Spidey fan.
Yeah,
And
yeah.
Peter Parker definitely runs the gambit on that. Are you? And I know you're a Miles fan as well, just by watching some of your recent videos and things like
Yes.
that. Are there other Spider characters though that you like have an attachment to and like grow to want either their runs or some of their keys?
I mean, I'm certainly looking at picking up, once, and unfortunately, Spider-Man has so many keys that I'll probably be busy with that for years to come. So, but yeah, no, having some of the other, for Silk or Spider Woman,
Okay.
Jessica Drew, those type of things, but are not really a priority for me right now. So yeah,
Okay.
I'm really kind of focused on, you know, Peter Parker, and I have the complete Miles run. I have all of every
Nice.
Miles book. So that was something I picked up in like the last 2 years, because I knew, if we ever see him on, and I'm sure we're going to live action,
Yeah.
there'll be a spike in books. And so I wanted to try to pick them up while they were still, relatively inexpensive. So,
Got you. What's going on, Kenneth? Thank you for coming and hanging out with us this evening.
Birdman.
Appreciate you. So, what is it about? Because we all know that my, tolerance for Peter Parker, like I'm not a Spidey fan at all. What is it though? Like, convince me, help me out with Peter Parker, because like I just don't get it. I don't get it. But what is it for you that sets it off for Peter
I mean,
Parker?
for me, it was always the proximity of where I grew up. Right, I grew up
Okay.
in New York, Long Island. When I first discovered the character as a 4 or 5 year old, I believed that I could go into Queens and see him, or I could go
Oh,
into
that's cool.
Manhattan and see him swinging around. Like
Yeah.
that was the initial connection. Like just the
Okay.
proximity of where his story was set and where I lived. So
Yeah.
that was
Yeah.
like
Yeah.
that was like an instant hook for me. And then, I think who doesn't go through school and middle school and high school where you have those awkward moments, and you kind of, at least I could relate to him, the character, from a just being, just having those weird times in your life where you didn't fit in, or whatever it may be. And so, that was then the other connection for me. um, and then just, that was really it. And then seeing, some of the, once I discovered the, some of the animated shows, and it just kind of, it hooked me. I mean, trying to remember, my mom took me, and my parents were very supportive, because my mom took me to a breakfast with Spider-Man. Like it was at like a JC Penney's. We
Yeah.
had like,
Yeah.
pancakes with Spider-Man one morning, and I won a poster when I was there. That, they did a raffle, and I won a poster.
Nice.
My dad took me to there was a chain of toy stores. It was a competitor in the Northeast to Toys R Us. It was called Play World,
Okay.
and they had an appearance of Spider-Man and Green Goblin one afternoon. There was some new toy, and so they were running a promotion. And my dad took me to that, and I remember there was like a promotion woman there, and she's like, she saw that I was there, waiting, and she like pulled me over and said, "Look, Spider-Man's going to come out soon, and if you see anything, if there's any villain that pops up, can you, warn Spider-Man?" And I was like, "No, he's got spider sense. Like he's going to know before I know. So no, I'm not. So I totally foiled her plan. I think she got some other kid to yell, but I was like, no, he's got spider sense. There's no, you know.
That other kid was not a true fan. Let's be honest.
Yeah,
Like
I'm
you
like, come
had it on
maybe,
point.
yeah, like
Like what? Why does Spider-Man need your help? Like,
right, right. I'm standing in the toy aisle at the at the toy store. Spider-Man does not need my help. If he needs me to go throw some punches or whatever, I'll help out with that. But I'm not warning him. He knows.
that's fantastic. Oh my gosh. Dr. Van Hoot is in the building. What's going on, sir?
Yeah.
Thank you for coming and hanging out with us this evening. Appreciate you. We got Dale Smith, my iron brethren. Brian and 22. The big dogs are out. I don't know about big dogs on my end, but we are definitely out. So there you go. Brian loves breakfast. All started with breakfast with Spider-Man. There you go.
Yeah.
There you go. The connections. Collecting with Durs. Working early, so I'll have to catch the recap. Much love, ladies. Appreciate you coming out, Durs. Thank you so much.
Yours?
So, do you have any Spider-Man books that you would like to show off?
Sure.
Oh, yes.
I got a couple.
Let's do this.
So this is one of my favorite
Yes.
Spider-Man covers of all time. Just iconic cover, right? The first John Romita Sr., on the run, and probably I think this might be the lowest number ASM that I own. I do plan on picking up others along the way, but yeah, this was one that like if I had to own, quickly because it's just a cover that I love so much. So
very iconic.
Yeah.
No, it's definitely a fire cover. And a 5 too. Man, that's fire.
Yeah.
That's awesome. Yes.
Yeah. So John Romita cover. So this was his first work on Spider-Man. He had a great run, for a long time. So.
Right. Cool.
And then, I brought Miles too, because
yes.
Yeah, this is a second print. I actually have a first print at CGC. So hopefully going to have that back in a couple weeks.
Okay.
But yeah, so this I really like Miles because he reminds me of a young Peter Parker. Like he's struggling with how to be Spider-Man and how to deal with all of the the family stuff and friends and high school and things like that. So it reminds me of an early Peter Parker. That's what I really like about, and there's obviously a little bit of different twist, right? He's got a little bit different powers and different family dynamic than Peter. So I like it. I think that what they should continue to do is use Miles as telling the younger story of Spider-Man, and then, finally after 60 years, let Parker grow up a little bit, like, maybe have some success. I mean, I know he's had success over the years, but I think we need to see a more, mature Peter Parker at this point, right?
Yeah. So that was going to be one of my next questions was, what is it about Miles? Because Peter Parker, at the age you were when you started talking, like seeing him and reading his books, seeing his cartoons and stuff like that, was relevant to you because you were going through a lot of the same stuff. But then the time that Miles comes out in what, early 2000s?
Yeah, like 2000. It might have been late, like 2010, 11, something like that.
Okay,
Yeah, I
okay.
think. Yeah, yeah.
So, like at that time, you've already become an adult and become a father and things like that, and like I feel like Miles has more swagger than Peter, honestly. Like, and I know that Peter has gotten Mary Jane and he's gotten Gwen Stacy, and then Miles and Gwen have been a thing for a long time as well. But that didn't happen in his first volume,
Right.
and so I see more of Peter Parker in that first volume because I have that and I have read all that, and it was like I really like Miles, honestly. Like that's probably the one that I gravitate towards,
Okay.
and but like he just doesn't come off um timid as Peter, like as much as Peter does.
Yeah, I
So
think I think the family, because of the family dynamic, right? He's got still got his mom and dad who are very supportive of Miles, in the
yeah.
storyline. Where Peter didn't have that, right? He was kind of a loner,
Hmm.
where he didn't, he has Aunt May, um, but she's an older, woman struggling. It's not his mom.
Yeah.
So there's definitely a different dynamic for Miles. But
Yeah.
what hooked, like I said, what hooked me initially with Miles is really just seeing a young Peter Parker in him. Like he's struggling with some of the same things Peter did from a being a superhero and trying to balance, his personal life.
Okay.
So
I
that
got
that's that's what initially kind of hooked me, from being a Peter Parker fan. But then, as you get into the story, it's a different it's a different take on,
you. Hmm.
because of the different, like I said, family dynamic is the thing that kind of sticks out to me.
Okay. All right. So you were saying something about an older Peter Parker. I hear that's a lot of things that people are like praising about this Ultimate Spider-Man that's come
Yeah,
out. A Peter
yeah,
Parker that's
and that's
married, that's got kids. That's there we go, there
yeah,
we go.
and
That's a
so
fire cover.
yeah, this is issue 4, and this is the 1 in 25.
Nice, nice. Do you
So
happen to know who did that? Just off.
let's see. I don't see it. I don't remember who did it. I think I
There
have
you
it
go.
right here though.
Let's say hello to Chop and Drop 2013. He is in the house. What's going on, Chop? Hold on one second. Let's get over here. There he is. There he is. What's going on, Chop? Thank you for coming and hanging out with us this evening. Bottom tier says, I didn't realize how much being able to relate to these characters mattered to me until I tried Spider Punk. That book is clearly made for
Mm.
10 to 14-year-olds, and I hate it. Wow. Wow. Do you enjoy Spider Punk at all, Brian? Is that.
I've read the last couple series, but not. It's okay. I like what they're doing. It's an interesting twist on the spider characters.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, not certainly not my favorite.
It seems like Spider Punk came out really strong and then just kind of fizzled. It's almost like he rode the movie hype from the most recent, what is it, Across the Spider Verse?
Right. And I thought
And
I thought that character in the movie was really good, really
yeah,
really well
no, I
done. Yeah,
enjoyed that.
yeah,
Yeah, but it's almost like he's fizzled out since then, which is odd.
yeah. Well, I guess too. We've seen so many over the last couple years. We've seen so many different spider stories, Spider Verse type stuff, multiverse, and there's just so many characters that
Mm-hmm.
you can if you're reading a bunch of it, you can kind of get burnt out on it because there's just so many.
Got you. Yeah, I agree. I agree. Cody, where'd you get that? What's going on, man? Thank you for coming and hanging.
Yeah.
Christina Payne, thank you for coming and hanging out with us this evening as well. Let's see. I'm trying to catch up with some of the chat. Dr. Von Hoot says Miles feels more like a traditional New Yorker as someone viewing it from across the pond. A little more swagger and attitude. What says you to that? Because you were a New Yorker.
Yeah, I was on Long Island, so there's kind of different levels of attitude in New York, right? If you're from like upstate, it's different. If you're in one of the boroughs like Bronx or Brooklyn, you've got a little bit more attitude. Long Island is more laid back, suburban. So we were, I got into a conversation with Nick from Nick's Kicks and Comics, because he
Yes.
grew up in Long Island for a little while, and then he was in New York, like in one of the boroughs in Bronx, or I forget, Bronx or Brooklyn. And so, there's certainly a different living dynamic depending on where you grow up. And Queens is kind of where Peter Parker grows up is a little less attitude than, say, Bronx or Brooklyn, where
Okay.
Miles is from, in Brooklyn. So so definitely there's different levels, right, of
Yeah. Yeah.
crankiness in the Northeast, depending on where you came from.
That's great. That's great. Dale Suspense says, sub up, Brian. Absolutely go sub him up. You'll find his details along with his IG, the Comic Book Community Awards, the Kickstarter we're going to be talking about here in a little bit as well. So stick around for that. All that information will be down in the description below. So be sure to hit all that up. Let's see. Bottom tier says, movie Spider-Punk rules. Book Spider-Punk is a generic kid. Wow. Spider-Punk is a great idea, but the actual books are just fine.
Yeah.
Morbius Comics, did comic relief, definitely has some attitude. Good guy, though. I'm not sure I understand that one. Do you know what he's talking about there, Brian?
Morbius. No. A lot of tears confusing us.
We need some help there, bottom tier. We need some help. Help us out a little bit. That's funny. What? So outside of, I know you've got several of those second appearance or the first appearances, second prints of the Miles Morales. So
Miles, yeah,
that's pretty awesome. Waiting on that first appearance to come back, or the first printing to come back. You also did a video here recently where you were putting out the label, talking about the label and how they did emphasize on that one.
Yeah, this is the book where they actually CGC, not messed up, but they just didn't print that this is a second print. So it's not noted on the label, but so it's not here, but the book actually says, second print, and there's a difference in the cover. In the first print, his Miles' face is not exposed; it's actually behind the title. So, I was just surprised because the difference between a cost-wise or a secondary market value, there's a big difference between the first print and the second print. So.
Well, and there's also been so much heat from when the facsimile came out here, however many years ago, and it resembled so closely to the actual first print that there was so much heat with that. And then on top of that, the Sirapicelli variant that you have of that, which is the white background, a close up on Miles's face, that second printing, it does actually say second printing on the label, doesn't it?
Yes, it does. It does, and that's clear, right? I mean, totally different cover.
Right.
So, but this, like I said, other than Miles, the way Miles is positioned against the title, but this does say second print. But and we've all seen listings on eBay and things like that you'll see even facsimiles. Sometimes people don't really spell that out in the description. So you got to be careful. And so I just feel like this is clearly the second print, and you would think with a modern book like this that they've probably seen a lot of times that it's kind of a surprise that they would make that mistake. But I'm going to send it back in and hopefully get it fixed and get it noted as second print. I mean, it's staying in the PC. I don't, it's not going anywhere. So
yeah. Well, I just find it with the white background cover, it's so obvious that is the second print.
Right.
And they put it on the label there, but they don't with that one that's actually so close to the first print. So, yeah, that's crazy. That is absolutely crazy. Obviously, you don't mind slabbing books at all. Is that a preferred way to keep keys, or is it just certain books that you like to do that way?
I think for key books it is. I mean, look, ultimately, right, what will happen with the collection, right? And 20, 30 years from now, whenever, right? Somebody will take the collection from, pry them from my dead hands. And so if my kids don't want to keep them to actually try to sell them, it's much better to have slab books because there's no, you know, we know what the grade is and we know what the value is, right? There's no subjectiveness to a raw book. You know, I look at a raw book and say, oh, I think that's a 9, you know, a 9.8, and you'll look at it and say, no, look, it's got some color rub or whatever, and maybe you think it's a 9.4, but you know, when you have it graded, there's no wiggle room, right? There's no subjectiveness.
Right, right. Unless it's PGX.
Right.
But then that's a whole nother story. So.
Right, right, right. Yeah, I think, you know, obviously, right. I think the standard is CGC and then CBCS, and then then down from there. But so that's really why I think of it, and the fact that I can read books digitally. Like, so if people, oh, you can't feel, you can't read the books, you can't smell the interior pages. I'm like, oh, that's fine. If you want to do that, that's up to you. But I can read the stories digitally if I have the book slab.
Yeah.
So yeah. I'm not, but most of my books, I probably have maybe 30 slabs.
Oh, nice.
But, I've got 2,700 books in the PC. So, I've got 2,700 books that are raw. So,
right.
But, from a bigger value standpoint, a bigger key issue or a book that has a lot of value, I think you would much rather have it slab because, at some point, if you sell it, or, get out of the hobby or whatever the case may be, whatever the situation is, that you're going to get the most value from a slab book.
Yeah, no, I think it takes, like you were saying, I think it takes a lot of the guesswork out of it and the him hauling around or whatever, as far as like this book is this or that or whatever else the case is. Like, it definitely, yes, I totally agree with that. Bottom tier says Morbius is from the Bronx, member of the community. Is that YouTube or IG or both? I'm interested now. I need to know about this Morbius. Jonathan says, time to crack the corner and make a switcheroo. Yeah. No. Alternate printing need to be different covers or an obvious different color scheme, in my opinion. That's really not bad at all.
Yeah.
I will say, like you pointed out, it does say second printing on the top right corner by the number. You do see Miles's face. Like, I think there are enough variations in that to where it's like you can tell the difference.
Right. Somebody really looking at it who's knows the book will know that that's a second print.
Yeah. Right. But then I also want, like, if I was to send, back in the days when my wife wasn't as educated about comic books and stuff like that, like if I was to sit there and say something about a book, like, would she know?
Right.
And I if I could sit there and say, hey, don't pick up the red background one, like, you know what I mean? But,
right. If there was a clear, something that was very clear. Yeah. Yeah. No, and I've seen it. I've seen listings, that are kind of on, on eBay where it's a facsimile, but they don't really state that. Right. And so unless you really look at the pictures and realize, oh, that's a facsimile, they're my mind, they're trying to be misleading with the way they've listed the book. And so I've seen it firsthand. So, uneducated, what happened to Digger Jim, right? He thought he was getting, recently he thought he was getting a book, first print, and it ended up being a second print or facsimile of.
It was another facsimile, a graded facsimile.
Was it Taskmaster?
It was the first appearance of Taskmaster. Yep, first full appearance of Taskmaster. Yeah, the Avengers. I can't remember. It's the green cover with him on the cover of it. Right, it was that book.
Yeah. Man. So and Jim is a knowledgeable guy, and still if if you're not paying attention, you can make a mistake.
Right. That's where that Miles facsimile caught so many people. And there's like two telltale signs. You've got the barcode actually touching the spine instead of having the gap, and then it's the color around the Marvel. I can't remember which variation it is, but that's like the difference between the facsimile and the actual first print. So Comic Cap Collectibles, what's going on, man? Thank you for coming and hanging out with us this evening. Appreciate you. 22 is laughing a little too hard. No, no, don't. I like my laugh.
That's his trademark. That's his.
Right? Oh, I'm a slab guy all day. I only read digital, so physical is all about the covers to me. Nice, nice. I think it's funny that you made the comment about like actually touching the paper and like smelling it, because like I'm that guy. Like I want to touch, like I want to feel some paper instead of touching some grass, and like I want to smell it. Like that's me.
No, I much prefer to read with a book and the physical book in my hand.
Okay.
But so I was trying to catch up on the Spider-Man Volume 5 of Spider-Man, the run, and so I had the physical books, but it was much easier for me to read on my iPad because if I was traveling or wherever I was, I didn't have to carry around a stack of books with me.
Right,
I just had
right.
my iPad. So I pick up books every week and I read them. I'll read the book, then I bag and board them and put them away. But the digital piece is convenient.
Yes. Yeah, I have read digital. I'm like you. I will do it because of it just consolidates space. It is much easier to just be able to like have one thing that you're going to carry with you anyways and be able to flip through and read some books. But I
And
do prefer the paper over.
and
Like,
the zoom feature, like, so an iPad to me is like
yes.
perfect because it's almost the size of a comic, right?
Yes.
So and then you can zoom in if the text is the lettering is a little wonky, you can zoom in, or if you want to look at a little bit closer of the art. So there is some advantage to digital.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Are you said you followed characters really, and so you're trying to make a run on the entire volume of Spider-Man, or what are you looking to do there?
So I'm looking at volume 1 right now. That's kind of what I'm focused on is volume 1, which is
Okay,
1 to 4 something. I
man.
already have, I'm volume 5 I'm done with. I'm collect volume 6 is the current volume. I'm up to date on that. So I'll go back over the year. Eventually I want to knock out volume 1 because that's what I collected when I first got into collecting, that's what I was reading.
Hmm.
So I probably started collecting around like issue 225, 230, and ran to about like 350, 360 or so, just probably before Carnage was really, so 361. So I
Okay.
had a run, but back in the 80s, you had 12 issues a year and one annual. That was it.
Yeah. Yeah.
You had one a month. So you only had 13 issues a year. So, I had a run of 100 issues, but that covered like, 10 years,
Right. Right.
or 8 years, 9 years, whatever it was. But it was, it wasn't like today where they're publishing, there's times that they publish Amazing Spider-Man 3 times a month. They're publishing it basically every 2 weeks now. So, and there's variant covers and so there's a lot more. The amount of books, that are in the current runs are a lot more than they were back in the day.
Well, and the prices too back in the day were like a
Yeah.
dollar and
Yeah.
something
Well, that's it.
compared
I
to
could go
five
to
now.
I go to my local 7-Eleven with $5, and I was picking up,
Right.
7, 8 books.
Right.
So
Right.
it was or I could, as a kid, I could ride my bike there, and if I scrounged together a couple dollars and change, I could buy a couple books.
Right. Yeah.
Today you can't do
Oh no. No. Much less ride your bike anywhere.
that. Right? Yeah.
I'm a paradox. I don't slab my books so I can feel and read them. I also buy omnibus so I can use and abuse them and not have to take the books out of their bags. What do you think about omnibus, Brian? Are you into collected editions like that?
I don't own any, but I'm kind of trying to refocus how I collect because when I got back in like 2021. So it was like drinking from a fire hose because so much had changed. There were so many
Right.
more books. Grading wasn't a thing when I collected in the 80s. So there was a lot to learn. And then I discovered YouTube and then all the different recommendations and people saying, oh, you should pick up this book and that book. That was a great read. And so I was buying a lot of stuff and reading a lot of stuff that really doesn't fit the way I collect, but it was just I was, being influenced by, hearing stuff from other people. And so I'm kind of dialing that back now and really just focusing on, Spider-Man titles that I want to read. So really
Hmm.
ASM and Amazing Spider-Man and Miles are my two focused books. I'm picking up. There's the new Spider-Men series with Miles and Peter, so I'm picking that up. But I'm trying to dial back on some of the like mini series and crossover stuff because I'd much rather spend that money on older books to kind of complete the run. So yeah, it's been it, it's taken me almost 3 years to get to that point where I'm like, well, I need to dial this back and not buy so many things that, oh, so and so said this was a great book, go pick it up. So
Yeah.
because I can read it digitally, or the question you asked about omnibus and trades is that if something's really good and I don't pick up the floppies, I'll just pick up the trade.
Yeah. Okay.
If it comes highly recommended, right? Like Do a Power Bomb is, I haven't read it. I've heard nothing but good things.
Hmm.
I never picked up the floppies. I'll probably pick up the trade paperback at some point to read it. But I think that's the way I'm going to go. If I miss the boat on floppies, but somebody says this is a must read, or I hear good things, I'll probably just wait and end up picking up the trade.
Do you think that the change in the market, as far as like people trying to grab up all the next things to possibly either flip or just because everybody's talking about these books and getting them hyped up, like Stray Dogs, for instance. Stray Dogs, when it came out, was extremely hyped up, 8 billion genies, things like that.
Right.
And like, I'm a floppies guy. I love getting, books and floppies, but I keep hearing more and more people like you who are like, I'm trying to refocus what my collection is. And if it's something like that I miss, that I will just go ahead and I'll wait and I'll get the trade. Do you think that's a reflection as far as like the market's doing right now?
I think it's, for me, it's really about, being able to have money, not spend so much money on new books every week. And then because, we hear it, Dr. Doom, right? The Doom book from last week blew up. It's blown up on the secondary market,
Right?
right? So when I went to the LCS this week, I didn't pick it up. I had looked at it in the shop last week and I was like, I'm trying to not break my own rule. I'm not going to pick this up because I think it was a $7 book. It was a one shot, but I'm like, I don't want to do it. And then, I saw the hype. And so when I went back this week, I poked around. Were there any copies? Maybe I could buy a copy and flip it. Right.
Yeah, yeah.
But they were gone. They were all gone. And so,
Hmm.
um, but I'm trying to stick to that rule where I don't fall into that trap of, oh,
Right.
this is the hot spec book of the week, and then in a couple weeks or 2 months from now, it's died down and it's back to cover price or under. um
Right.
like Stray Dogs is one of those, and Stray Dogs had a ton of covers, variant covers, movie covers, right? So you
Yes.
kind of can end up just spending money to chase, and I'm sure, right, Stray Dogs now, I'm not sure it's sustained that hype that it had.
Yeah, it's been a while since I've actually looked at it. I think it got to like $20 or $30, but that was like months ago when I actually looked at it for like a possible alternative or something like that. Like
Right.
it's come down quite a bit. So
Yeah, and I think
not
the new shiny thing, chasing the new shiny thing every week. I don't think that's going to serve me well long term because I'm at 20, like I said, right between I guess about 2,700 books, and I moved everything to short boxes recently, just because the long boxes, when you fill a long box, they're heavy, right? And so if you need to move them around, and so I moved everything to short boxes, but I have a closet full. I've got, I think, four or five short boxes per. I've got like 20 short boxes full of books, and the closet's full.
yeah.
So that storage becomes an issue, right? And so
Hmm.
I know I want to pick up the run of Amazing Spider-Man, and that's 400 and something books. So that's going to be, a few more short boxes in the closet. So space becomes an issue. So
Yeah.
um, So that's why I'm trying to not chase that hot book from a spec perspective, or even FOMO of, oh, you got to read this. This is a great story.
Yeah.
Just because I know I'm going to look back in 6 months from now and be like, yeah, that was an okay story, but it's not really something I want to keep in my collection long term.
Right.
So
Right. I think a lot of people in the community are coming to that same kind of like realization, I guess, is what I'm trying to
right,
say. So
right, yeah, because you don't have unlimited space
right.
and money, right?
I
So
was gonna say or funds, yeah. Yeah. Both are very valuable assets
right,
to maintain. Bottom tier says first rule when shopping for key books, check the price stamp. That's true. That is true. I will. Yeah, that's a good indicator there. First Taskmaster. Yep. It was a Toys Biz version. I remember Jim saying this. Oh, it's a reprint. No wonder it was cheap. Yeah,
yeah,
I remember that. I remember that. There's my honey. Hey, honey. Love you bunches. Bottom tier. I like the digital format for laying next to the wife in bed, reading $10,000 comics, and compiling a huge storyline without shelling out.
yeah,
Yes.
yeah.
Yes. I've only been doing comics since 2013. I'm starting to see certain series that are no longer dollar bin mainstays. Yeah, Wolverine, which I know he's a big Wolverine fan, has just shot up recently. It's insane.
Well, it's
Insane.
funny too because I collect. So I have everything in ZLC CLZ app on my phone, right? So I scan my new books in every week, and you can. I have it linked to cover price, so I get updates on pricing of the books. And 9 out of 10 times when I do a price update, it's one of my Volume One Spider-Man books that increases in value.
Nice.
It's and they creep up, $10, $12, $15. And so, if I'm thinking it from a non-collecting, just, an investment standpoint or resale, I'd much rather spend, $4 or $5 on and most ASM volume one books are not $4 or $5, but I'd much rather spend money on a book, an older book, than a newer book, because I think that has better long-term value,
Yeah.
right? And so keys, now I'm trying to focus on keys. I just picked up Ultimate Fallout 4, the first print. I picked up ASM 300. I picked up Secret Wars 8, and I picked up ASM 361, the first Carnage. So
Mm-hmm.
those are all off at CGC. And I'm going to Heroes Con next month, and I'm looking to pick up my focus right now is on ASM 129, First Punisher.
Okay.
So I'm trying to pick up some of those bigger key books in the run, um, because I think, like I said, from a long term resale investment standpoint, they're going to have more legs than
Yeah.
the Zeb Wells Spider-Man run that we're dealing with right now.
Especially Spider-Man, just because of his Rose Gallery and just how popular he is in general. Like those to me, if I was ever somewhere and I saw some earlier Spider-Man, I would probably pick it up because it would be easier for me to let it go because I'm
Sure.
not a Spidey fan, and the
Right. Right.
fact that like I know people want that stuff.
Right.
So me as like a somewhat of a reseller or being in that reseller mentality, like I look for those kinds of books that are on deals because I'm like,
Right.
that's
Yeah.
that's money all day for me.
You can buy and hold it for a little while and probably sell it, at a profit. Or if you get a really good deal, then you can flip it
Right,
for a higher price. So yeah, yeah.
right, right. Did we say hello to Lettuce Comics? What's going on, Lettuce?
No, yeah.
Appreciate you
He
coming
just hit
out.
100 subs too.
Did he get 100?
Yeah, he hit 100 the other day. Yeah.
Yes,
Yes.
that's awesome. I know that
Yes.
Brandon Mon Comics and Mr. Akins are doing a celebration type deal with him hitting certain milestones. So y'all go check out their YouTubes and go support Lettuce Comics and see what you have a chance at possibly winning from Brandon and Mr. Akins. So Bottom tier says, "Do you like Spider Boy, Brian?"
I'm not sure yet. I'm like, so I've been picking up the books. I read the first 4 or 5 issues of the current Spider-Boy series, and I've kind of fallen off. They're on my reading pile. I have to kind of get back. To me, he seems like he's more geared towards a younger audience,
Okay.
like a teenage audience. So I don't know if it's really something I will continue to collect long term, but I kind of wanted to see where it was going, the character was
Yeah.
going. Yeah, so I'm still kind of on the fence about the character as a whole.
I have tried to implement a 6 issue rule where, like, if I start something or I try something, I give it 6 issues, which I feel like is a lot, honestly.
Yeah,
But I
yeah,
feel like that's also a story arc. Like, that's a trade.
right, right,
And so I feel like if you can't grasp me or at least catch me at the end and me be like, oh, that was something awesome,
right,
then like there's no point in really in me
right.
continuing
Yeah, if
on.
they
I can
can't
see
hook
the
you
whole
in
thing.
6 issues, then there's probably no hope that they're going to get you issue 20.
Right, right. Um, so does Spider Boy just seem immature to you? Like you were talking about it being closer to a younger audience. What is the hype with Spider Boy? What do you think the hype is with
I,
Spider Boy?
I guess because the way they're telling the story, you really don't know his backstory. He came out saying, you like to Peter Parker that, I'm your sidekick. You should know who I am. Why don't you remember me? And so there's some mystery behind his origin. And so I think that's been kind of the hook, with him, like, because we just don't know the full story yet.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, I feel like the stories that the supporting cast too of the different characters that are in the supporting cast of his story are really, he's a teenager. So, I mean, even younger than Peter was or Miles. He's probably like 14, 13, 14. And the
Okay.
supporting characters around him are very young. So. Um,
Mm.
and some of the villains that they've introduced are, more, kid friendly type villains, right? Just,
Okay.
yeah. So that's for me. Um, I don't think it's something I'll continue to collect, long term.
Yeah. I got you. I got you. I used to see literal stacks of small $1 bins. Now I can't find filler. Right? Right? No, I'm with you on that. Lettuce. I will never understand how someone can be allowed to mess up Spider-Man as much as they are currently. What
Yeah.
is it? Why
Well,
does
and that's what.
everybody hate this?
Yeah, and I think that's why Ultimate Spider-Man has been such a hit because it's a different take on Spider-Man, and Peter's with Mary Jane. They have a family, they have kids. So if you somebody who's been reading Spider-Man for a long time, this is kind of the progression of the character that you want to see, and I think that's
Mm-hmm.
why Ultimate has kind of blown up because of where Peter is in his life. It's I'm not a teenager anymore. And, I heard somebody make the comment like, oh, well, most Spider-Man fans just want him to be married with MJ and have kids because that's where they are with in their life. And I was
Okay.
like, okay, that's a fair point, but the character's 60 years old, right? And so, when you're trying to develop I mean, he's 60, he's been in existence for 60 years. It doesn't,
Right. Right.
story wise, he's not 60, right? But
Yeah. Yeah.
you want to see some progression in that character over it. He's still when I first picked up a Spider-Man book when I got back in 2021, I'm like, he's still broke. He still can't pay the rent. Like he hasn't figured this out yet. So you need to have some progression in the character, right? So,
No. Absolutely. Yes.
because he's older now. He's not in college. He's not in high school. He's not in college anymore, right? He's like mid to late 20s. At this point, he needs to figure it out. You know what I mean? Like,
Get it together, Peter. Get it together.
yeah, that's what. So, and I think that's why Ultimate has been such a hit because he has in the book. He is married. He's got kids. He's got a steady job. He's not.
Yeah.
He's not running from the landlord. You know what I mean? Like so. it's it's kind of like the story most older Spider-Man readers want to see.
He didn't make a
So
deal with Mephisto.
right, right, exactly, right. And if you want the young Spider-Man story, right, you've got Spider-Boy, you've got Miles Morales, right? Like,
Yeah.
there are other options. It's not like you're not going to, if you're in your 20s and you can't relate to somebody being, married with kids, well, then you can go, but like Spider-Man, you can go read Miles or, there are other stories for you. So,
Yeah. Yeah. I wonder if it's kind of like it's more of a perfect storm where, there was this, I think, is it Zeb Wells that's doing Spider-Man right now? Is
yes.
that,
Yeah.
well, yeah, a lot of people are not digging it, and I wonder if it's just a perfect storm of just nobody's digging the actual Amazing Spider-Man title, but then along comes the Spider-Man they've been wanting for however long. So it's like a double whammy of
Oh,
like,
sure.
I
Yeah.
don't like this, but this is what I've been wanting.
And I don't, I don't know. I can't say I've read a lot of Zeb Wells over the years. Maybe I have, and I just didn't know he was writing it. But to me, it seems like Marvel's got to put an A team on Spider-Man from a
Yeah.
writing perspective and from an art perspective. And John Romita Jr. He's had a great history. He's been a great artist over the years. There's something that's changed in his style that just I don't care for, and it's inconsistent. It's like there's times where I look at some of his art and was like, wow, that looks really great. He does really well when he's drawing Spider-Man like in action and fighting
Uh-huh.
and things like that. But when he's just doing a static, panel with somebody just talking, he has trouble with some of the proportions and faces and things like that. So it's just very inconsistent. And so when you're reading it, it's almost distracting.
Oh,
So
nice.
I'm like, I don't know why Marvel wouldn't. It's their best-selling title. Just pay the A team. And I'm sure John Romita Jr. gets paid very well, but it's
Right.
just it's too inconsistent for their top-selling title.
I wonder if he even wants to be on the title, honestly, because I've heard so many people complaining about his artwork, and it's like, this is freaking John Romita Jr. Like this, like he's no slouch.
Right.
Like,
No, but if you look at his art, like if you just compare like something he did 20 years ago, 10 years ago, and you look at his current work in the last couple years, 2-3 years since this Spider-Man run now is 50 issues in, there's something that's changed, and I don't know if
yeah,
it's he's being rushed to do work or is he, just I don't know if I've ever really seen another example of an artist kind of lose or their style change. And that's what like their style is
okay,
his style is almost it's not what it was 20 years ago.
right. But it also seems like it's just drastic, almost like a flip of a switch. Like nobody was complaining about it
Right, right,
until he all of a sudden got on Spider Man, and then
right.
everybody seems to be complaining about it. So that's
Yeah,
what
I don't
makes
know
me
what it
think,
is. It's
like,
just weird. I don't think I've ever noticed another artist in that way. Like I don't and I don't know from an artist perspective, like as you get older, I don't know how you would lose your style. Like, you know what I
yeah,
mean? Like, we've seen community artists. Like if you look at community artists, like when I look at art and I know it's Roscoe because Roscoe has a particular style, right?
right, right,
Or actual Dracula, like a couple of any of the artists,
mm,
like they have their own style, and it's pretty consistent. And if you've seen enough of their work, you can point them out. But
right.
so I don't know how somebody loses like that, how their style gets lost. It doesn't make sense to me.
Yeah, outside of like either having a stroke or a car wreck or something,
Right. Yeah.
something
If there
like
was something
that.
physical, right? Yeah. But
Yeah.
you've seen John Romita Jr. He's pretty buff. He's in shape. You know what I mean? It's not like he's walking around with a cane or something.
Well, and if something had happened, surely we would have heard about it. The way news is and things like
Oh,
that,
sure. Right. Right.
surely we would have heard about
Right.
it. So
Right.
That's what makes me think he's like doing it somewhat on purpose. So,
Yeah, I don't
but
know.
I have no. That's just a rumor on my part because I
Right,
have no
right.
evidence of any
Yeah,
kind.
I wish there was I wish there was some explanation of it. You know what I mean? Because
Yeah,
then you say, oh, okay, well that makes sense, right?
yeah, yeah. Bryant with I Have Comics Issues. What's going on, man? Thank you for coming and hanging out with us this evening. Appreciate you. I know I'm behind on the chat, so I do apologize. Von Hoot says that he gives 2 issues, then bin it off if I still
Mm.
don't dig it. I think that's most people, honestly. Like,
Yeah, 2 or 3 issues I think is most people's
yeah,
you know hook, right? If they're not hooked by then they
yeah, yeah. I agree, and I don't think there's anything wrong with that, honestly. Like, I really don't. The
no.
reason I do it my way is because I'm not a Superman fan at all either, and Red Sun hooked me at the very last book, and that is by far my favorite Superman story now. And so ever since then, I've said, okay, I need to give an arc to see if it's gonna actually hook me at the end.
Right.
So
But there's so many different options, right? You drop. It's not like you. I know for me, a lot of times I would if I dropped the book, then I just reallocated that money to pick up something else. So
right,
you
right,
just move on.
exactly.
You moved on to something else. So
Yeah, yeah. Have you tried Ghost Machine yet? Brian asks.
yeah, I've been reading. Yeah, Geiger. I picked up Geiger initially when it came out, and I didn't read it, and then I finally got around to reading it and really liked it. And then Junkyard Joe really that miniseries hooked me into the whole Ghost Machine universe. And then the thing with their books is it's high quality. Like the
Nice.
artwork is done really well. The writing is very good. Storytelling is very good. But the book itself is what, $3.99, or I think $3.99, but it's quality paper, cardstock
Yeah.
covers. It's so when you put all those things together, it's like it's easy to spend the money on those books because you're getting quality all the way around, writing,
Yeah.
art, and the physical book itself.
Yeah. Yeah.
So yeah,
What has been your favorite so far? You said Junkyard Joe.
Junkyard Joe, yeah, he's really been my favorite. But um, so here I have Red Coat. Yeah, so it's $3.99. Yeah, that $3.99.
Nice.
Um,
Which is
I
actually
don't know. I like.
lower than some of the other ones now.
Yeah, uh, I like. It's tough. I like all 3 stories. Geiger's been really, has been solid. Red Coat is interesting because it's a little bit of a history. You're getting some historical characters
Mm-hmm.
in Red Coat, and then Rook is, it's kind of that post apocalyptic story, but you're getting it's like a different take on it. So
Okay.
all 3 have been really good.
I'm interested. I was talking to somebody today, and I feel bad now because I can't remember who it was. But it was on IG, and they know who they are, and I definitely shout you out if I can remember, but I can't. But I'm super interested in Rook and Junkyard Joe. Like, I feel like those are the two that, like, I don't know what it is about those, but like Geiger, for some reason, I just don't like the aesthetics. Like,
Okay.
I don't like the way he looks necessarily. Junkyard Joe, though, I'm interested in, and then Rook just seems the idea of having a mask and being able to control that type of animal seems really
Yeah.
cool. So
Yeah. Yeah, no, Junkyard Joe, I think the miniseries was, for me, it was, it was kind of a, there was a family story element to it, and then Junkyard Joe coming back to one of his basically old friends, and
okay,
so there was that kind of, the story element was really the hook for me. But then also too, you've got this robot who was from the 70s. So like,
yeah,
wait a minute, how did they have technology? The technology to have that at that point. So that's interesting to understand that that backstory.
Changing gears a little bit, bottom tier says, I wonder if Ultimate is the test bench for main continuity. It's been way past time to progress Peter Parker. How do you feel about that? Just going ahead and just ditching and making this Ultimate the new Peter Parker, the new way of life.
I would be fine with it. Because I mean the current ASM right now, we're dealing with the latest issue that just came out, issue 50, is we've got the Green Goblin again, right? And so there's been this story going on with Green Goblin and Norman Osborn and Peter over the last couple years. And so, they're kind of rehashing, and obviously, right? All comics do that with, a rogues gallery of villains, villains come back over time. But just Ultimate just seems such a fresh take on it. Like, yeah, why don't we just run with Ultimate and, we'll I don't know what we'll do with ASM, but
when y'all can figure it out, we'll pick it up later. That's great. Joe from Anachronic Comics, what's going on, man? Thank you for coming and hanging out with us.
He's hanging out with Gary earlier.
Superman's son is almost Peter's age now. That's great.
That's what I mean. It's like,
he's aged.
We don't need old man Peter Parker, but at least let's move the character along a little bit.
Do you have any other books you want to show off, Brian? Sure.
I've got so this series before comics was a game changer for me from just a toys and what I was into as a kid, because I was mainly superheroes pretty much since I was 3, 4, 5 years old. I discovered Batman, Adam West, and then Spider-Man, and was just basically superhero focused as a kid. But then when this came out,
nice.
When Star Wars dropped, it was like my Toy Story moment, right? I went from, I kicked Woody to the curb and went with Buzz Lightyear. You know what I mean? It was like I put all my superhero toys away, and then I had all my Star Wars stuff out.
Buzz, Lightyear to the rescue.
Yeah, it was like that. I mean, it was like I boxed up all my Spider-Man and Batman toys. They went away, and then I had all the Star Wars stuff.
So was this just like your coming of age moment? Was this your like, oh, this is grown up superheroes right here? Is that what this was?
No, I mean, I was still, when Star Wars came out, it came out in 1977. So I was 7 at the time. So, I was still fairly, young, still playing with toys and all that, but it was a shift. It was like, I boxed up, I think that Christmas I got a bunch of Star Wars toys, and it was like, I boxed up and put the superhero stuff away and was just all Star Wars from then out until, I was probably 12, 13, whatever, when I stopped really, playing with toys, and that was it. And then because I boxed the stuff up and didn't even play with it anymore, we stored it in up in our garage, and we had a fire, and the entire garage burnt down.
Oh.
And so I lost all of my superhero toys in that fire.
Oh.
So I had all the original Mego figures. I had the Bat Cave. I had, the Batmobile. I had a ton of superhero toys. But because of this Star Wars coming into my life, we shifted it, and like I said, it was in boxes. It was up and it got all destroyed. And so I had all the Star Wars toys, and I kept them until I was in college. And I needed money when I was in college, and a friend was having a garage sale. So I took all my Star Wars stuff to the yard sale, and I sold it to a dad who was there with his young son, he was introducing his son to the Star Wars movies. And I sold the whole lot of toys. I forget, maybe $125, $150 at the time. And I wish I never did that, because when I got married and had kids, my kids all love Star Wars.
Uh,
And so to be able to have my original stuff that I could have shared with them would have been great, but it
right.
didn't work out. So, but I was, when I think about it, I was happy that I sold it to, it wasn't like a collector or anything like that. It was to a dad who was now introducing the movies to his son, at the time. And so, that was, at least gives me that little peace of mind. Like, well, at least they went to, somebody who was going to appreciate them and share them with his kids.
Right. No, I was gonna say you had another Woody moment. You had another Toy Story
Right.
moment where you were able to
Exactly.
that's awesome,
Yeah.
man.
Yeah.
Like,
Yeah. So every once in a while, like when my kids were growing up and they were really into it, I kicked myself like, oh man, I wish I really would have had those toys. But, then we bought Lego, Star Wars Lego sets and things like that and built them with
yeah.
them over the years. And so, we still, and they're, all three of my kids are like big Star Wars fans.
Nice. Nice.
So,
Well,
yeah.
you got any more books you want to show off?
No, that was really all I pulled.
Cool.
Yeah.
Cool. We'll roll through the comments real quick. Lettuce says he's buff because he has to fight off all the haters. I'm not sure who's
Robert
buff.
Mader Jr.
Oh yeah. That's right. That's right. Bottom tier says I like Geiger and Redcoat feels more for me, but I need to reread the first issue. I didn't vibe with it. Nice. Bryant likes Redcoat, thinks it's pretty awesome. Faybox art on Rook is jaw dropping. Jaw dropping, y'all. How was Batman not fallen into recycled story rut? Spider-Man has. That's a good question, honestly. That's a good question. Do you have any thoughts on that,
Oh,
Brian?
I think, although I haven't read it right, the Scott Snyder run on Batman, right? That the Court of Owls and everything, that was all new,
Oh
right? That was
yeah, that was
new
new.
backstory that they added, right? And so that's been a major story.
Yeah,
Spider-Man really hasn't had any introduction of, at least that I can think of, any really new villains that have really had that impact or staying power. It's really all the original villains for him, right? You're still dealing with the Green Goblin, Sandman, Vulture, Mysterio. There's been no new
yeah.
villain that or character that's been introduced that's really taken the story in a different direction.
That's what I was gonna say. Like, regardless of Chasm coming out and that being exciting, and uh, was it Queen Goblin Queen? No,
Queen,
Red Queen Goblin
yeah,
something.
Queen
I can't even remember now.
uh, Queen Goblin, right? Yeah. Well,
Yes,
I guess Venom, right? Venom was probably the last big. Venom and Carnage were probably the
Carnage.
last
Yeah,
two big character villains introduced in the Spider-Man storyline that really had the
yeah.
impact. But right, we're talking a long time ago.
I was gonna say like 30 years ago.
Right,
Like,
right. And
yeah,
Batman has had more recent introduction of new characters or kind of new blood into the story, I think, than Spider-Man.
yeah. I agree. But I also don't know that they have the staying power either. Like, I know Clown Hunter was a big one there for a bit, Miracle Molly,
Right,
but like, I'm reading the current Chip Zdarsky Batman, and none of those are showing up, and rightfully so. Like, there's no reason for any of those to be showing up
right,
in the story, and so I'm glad they're not forcing those characters on me. They really are pretty keeping it pretty tight with the characters. It seems like in the current run, but they seem to be mimicking what's going on in Iron Man, honestly, with Batman right now, where both of them have lost all their money. Like
Hmm.
they have nothing, and it's like what's going on here? This this is not my
Where did
Batman.
this money
What
go? And why doesn't Peter
right?
Parker have any of it?
Yeah, he was an employee of Tony Stark at one time. Where's his cut?
Maybe get some stocks or something. Come on.
That's great. I don't own any of my childhood anymore. I can't think of one figure, Lego set, or video game I have kept all these years. I find myself wanting to buy my childhood. Yeah, I think that's a lot of us. I think that's a lot
Yeah.
of us. Comic Addicts, what's going on? Thank you for coming out. What's going on? Yo, what's up? Appreciate you. Brian, if we may veer a little bit from your short boxes, I would love to talk about something that you have started coming up with. It's a book called The Doctor. What can you tell us about this book that you have come up with that's coming out?
Yeah, so I mean, I've always had a writing. I've always been a writing. In college, I studied film and television production in college. I really wanted to work in film. I wanted to be in Hollywood and write or direct and just be in the film industry. That was my goal as a teenager and then in through college. And during college, I started to write screenplays. And I've done 4 or 5 original screenplays. And I wrote a couple episodes, like spec episodes with a friend. We did a Seinfeld episode back in the day. It didn't. None of
Nice.
this ever went anywhere. I had an
Yeah.
agent. I actually had an agent, a literary agent in Hollywood for a little while, who was
Oh, cool.
representing my screenplays. Um, and I wrote like an episode of NYPD Blue. It was an old, TV show. I wrote just kind of an episode just to get the format and show my writing ability. And so I did a lot of
Yeah.
writing in my early 20s, and then life gets in the way. I got a job, and then my career kind of veered from television and film production into more on the IT side. I actually got a job in television, but it was more on the IT side. And
Okay.
then I kind of just went that way, kind of leaned into the IT side of things.
Yeah.
And here I am now, 20 something years later, and I'm coming back to writing, getting some stuff down, some scripts, some script ideas, character ideas down on paper.
Yeah.
And now being back involved with comics and things like that, and self-publishing and Kickstarter and things like that, being so accessible, I said, why don't, instead of trying to make a film, right? Because I don't got $20 million lying around that I can go make a film. um, I could produce a comic, and still from a story and a visual perspective, I can get similar results, right? And I'm kind
Yeah.
of the director of the comic book. I'm writing the script. I'm working with an artist to be able to, put a vision of what I want to see on paper. And so for a lot less overhead, I can actually, produce something. And so that was the idea. I kind of started writing, had some ideas for some comic book characters, some storylines. And I finally just said, look, I'm going to put this to paper, and I'm going to go get an artist, and I'm going to try to make my own book. And so that's how it kind of came about. Um, I talked to a lot of people in the community that have done similar Kickstarters and books. Doug Bratton, who did Isolation with Reggie
Okay.
Collects. I picked his brain a lot. Brandon from Dismay Comics. I picked his brain a lot on just the process of how do you find an artist, what just the nuts and bolts of putting it together.
Yeah.
Um, and then I put it down, got a script together, and went and found an artist, and now I'm at the point where the book is pretty much done. I got a little printout that I
Nice.
did on my printer at home. Um,
Yes.
but so we started a Kickstarter a couple weeks ago. It's fully funded, 100% funded at this point. I mean, a big thank you to the community. Um, but it was just an idea I had. The main character is the doctor. He's a psychiatrist who helps superpowered people with some of the everyday BS that we deal with, right? We all
Right.
deal with stress and life issues, whatever it may be, right? Whatever may be going on in our life. But from a somebody with super abilities, there could be a lot different consequences if they're having a bad day. If I can,
Right.
if I can fly or punch, have super strength, right? If I get angry at the guy in front of me at the drive-through, well, that might be a different scenario than me being angry at the guy in front of me in the drive-through. So um, that was the idea of like kind of taking that angle of superheroes and superpowered characters potentially could have a bad day. So how do they deal with it? How do they get help and support to kind of muddle through some of the daily stuff that we all deal with.
Right. Did your personal taste on books and I guess in particular like Spider-Man, like did those characters in the books that you like to collect, did they have any impact on the story that you're putting together?
I think it's a lifetime of watching movies, reading books, whether it's comic books or novels or whatever it may be, right? Consuming of content, and then people I know, people, family members, friends, coworkers, right? They all of that is up in here, and that's
Mm-hmm.
when I write something. It's kind of a composite of all of those things. Um, you know, Content that I've consumed and people that I've experienced in my life. I mean, um, the main character's name, I have a friend named. So the doctor is Dr. Mike Miller. I have a high school
Okay.
friend named Mike Miller.
Oh, cool. Okay.
So, and it was just, I like the aesthetic of the name, the way it sounds, Mike Miller.
Yeah.
And so Michael Miller. And so I'm not really modeling the character after him, but the name is, because it's a name that I knew,
Yeah.
aware of. So, so the character is kind of a composite of, I've got my friend's name I'm using. There's some other, um, a little bit of my dad in that character.
Okay.
And so, yeah, so it's kind of, a composite.
Okay. I was gonna ask you about the name because it came off very like Stan Lee-ish, where like J.
Hmm.
Jonah Jameson, Peter Parker, things like that, where he liked to do that kind of thing a lot. Where there's an actual name for it, and it's escaped my mind at this point in time. But where like Mike Miller, it was all kind of that same kind of thing. I didn't
Right,
know if
right.
that was a thing that you did on purpose or if it was something like what you said, where it was some.
Yeah, just this one was just someone I knew. And a lot of times when I'm thinking character names, I'm thinking of how does it sound when you pronounce it, right? Or how do
Mhm.
how does it roll off the tongue when you put the full name together, right? It's just
Yeah. Yeah. Okay. Cool. How did you find trying to put this book together more difficult or easier than you anticipated?
easier from a art perspective, getting the artwork done and lettering
Okay.
done. That was, I was able to find an artist that really kind of worked within my budget. you know, I,
Nice.
I definitely want to try to change some things with the next issue. The
Okay.
artist did all of the work digitally, so I really want to try to get traditional work done where we have pencils on paper,
Okay.
and so that I physically have the artwork. I don't we just have digital representation of the art, right?
Mhm.
There's no pencil on paper. So I definitely want to look for a different artist just in the process that they use. The
Okay.
biggest thing is that the biggest thing that I didn't anticipate was the amount of work I had to put in from giving all of the characters background, right? So there's three main characters in the first issue of the Doctor, but there's some supporting cast, and so defining all of those supporting cast, because you may introduce somebody in issue one, but they may have a pivotal story moment in issue three. So you have to
Yeah.
kind of give that character the background. And so there was a lot of work on my part, just defining, what do they look like, or how old are they, what is their backstory. So I was pretty consistent on doing that for the three main characters, but then thinking about the overall story is like I need to do a lot of that homework for a lot of the secondary characters, because, like I said, they're going to play out over time, and so you need to have at least in my mind, you need to have that defined so that it makes sense. I have a better sense of how to write them, and then to the audience, whoever's reading it, has a better sense for the characters that it makes sense.
Got you. Okay. Okay. Got Jonathan asking question, is it a comedy and circumstances responding with it's a geeky tragedy?
So
So
no,
is
it's a dramatic. I would describe it as a dramatic story, but certainly try to put elements of comedy in it.
yeah.
I don't know if I did so much in issue one because there's a lot of there's a couple little one liners or a couple little lines that I think will get a laugh, but um, unfortunately, a lot of issue one is setup. Right? I'm
Yeah.
defining the world and the nuts and bolts of where these characters live and so there's a little a lot of setup in issue one, unfortunately. So
I got you. I got you. I do have one question about one of your characters. Uh she came across with the name, I guess the superhero name. Is it LT or is she supposed to be Lieutenant?
no, LT, just
Okay.
initials like LT. Right?
Got you. Okay. Thank you. Thank you very
Yeah.
much. That
Yeah.
was. I needed to know that. I needed to know that. As much as Phil needed to know, were there hash browns in this? And I didn't see any, but.
No, they didn't. There were nothing. So within the book and the story, Dr. Miller he hosts like meetings, like a group session with people to help walk them through their things that they're dealing with. And no, I don't think there was any donuts or coffee or breakfast items at any of those meetings.
He's totally lacking in a lot of food. Like, no comfort food at all. It didn't seem like. But the way that these heroes that go in, like they're concealed from the other ones that are in there as well, which is pretty clever, as I thought anyways. And I feel like the way that it's done, eating something would possibly
Yes, would
dampen
cause.
that
Yeah, that's
or
true. Yeah, yeah. They're going to have to eat outside of the meeting. Right.
come with a full belly or ready
Right.
to eat afterwards, one or the other. So
Right.
Dale says that Dale is a great character name. Anytime there's a character named Dale, he's either really dumb or a killer. So, Dale, I don't think that the one from The Walking Dead was dumb or really a killer. Like, I just, I don't think so. So, yeah. J. Jonah Jameson, Peter, like, that's what I was talking about. Alliterations. That's it. That is it. Thank you so much, Mr. Akins. Look at the teacher coming in here schooling me.
Yes.
Appreciate that.
Yeah, no, I didn't.
Um,
I didn't even consider that. It was like I said. It was more kind of a nod to a friend of
yeah.
Michael Miller, and so I just like the. I thought Doctor Miller.
It
Had
definitely rolls off the tongue.
yeah, kind of had a
Definitely
ring
rolls
to
off
it.
the
So
tongue.
that's why I went with it. But yeah, I can.
Is this, let me ask you this, is this Mike Miller's story? Like, is he the main character? Like, I know we have LT and we have another character that's introduced in here as well. But is Mike Miller the main character of this story?
Yeah, this story is really his story, but I'm introducing other characters. So we have LT, we have another young superhero um, that I potentially could do other stories. I've kind of outlined and have some ideas to do some other stories with them. But this book and the next three issues. The idea is to put together a 3-book story arc of
Okay.
this story. And it's Mike Miller's, it's Dr. Miller's story. So
Okay.
yeah,
So you're going 3 and not 4 issues.
yeah, that's the way I have it outlined right now. And really even in issue one, it's 15 pages of actually story of art, and it's 15 pages of story. Um, I expect that issues 2 and 3 will be longer than that. It was really
Uh-huh.
part of this was really just learning the process of how long does it take to get a page done, how much does it
Mhm.
cost, and that's the one thing
Yeah.
I don't think people that haven't done something like this understand. And it was a little bit I was a little bit surprised um, that the cost for an artist,
Okay.
you can get page up, most of them work on a page rate, a per page. They're going to charge you X
Okay.
amount of money per page. And so I have 15 pages of art, so I had to pay a certain price per page. And so you can get artwork done for, there's a lot of artists across the world, different countries overseas that you can get to work a lot less expensive than you can say here in the United States. So, but I mean, you can spend from $50 a page to $300-400 a page, right? So, you if you're producing a 20-page comic book story and you're paying $300 a page, you're $6,000 in for the artwork.
Yeah. Yeah.
So it can get very expensive very quickly. So, um, I think that, so part of my venture into this was to let me kind of get my feet wet in understanding how much do things cost, how long does it take to turn something around, and so those type of things. And so I didn't want to put out a omnibus day one, right? I wanted a kind of a condensed story, just to kind of test how things go. So
Got you.
yeah.
So did your artist do the lettering as well? Because I know like sometimes people hire a letterer to do that. And
No, the artist did the art and the coloring, and then I had Justin Birch do the lettering.
nice,
Yeah, so reached
nice.
out to Justin, and he was, very helpful, just helping me, direct me, and was able to turn the lettering around very quickly for me. So, and that's the one advice that I got from Brandon from Dismay Comics. So the comic is done. Like, I have the complete, artwork and everything is done. A lot of
Hmm.
times when people do Kickstarters, they're waiting for the funding from the Kickstarter to be able to get the artwork done. So I self-funded
Oh,
up front so that I had everything done. And so once the Kickstarter is done, I can send it to the printer and then hopefully turn the books around very quickly. As opposed, like I said, some people take the approach where they wait for the funds to come in, and then they get the art done, and so there's potentially a long lead time, um, when you may actually see the end product. Um, so this afforded me to be able to, I'm going to be able to turn this book around pretty quickly, and then hopefully be able to get a very good jump on issue two, as soon as issue one kind of wraps up.
okay, okay. So the funding that we have is not only to kind of, I want to think about how I'm going to put this. So because you already have it funded. You're done with book one.
Right,
So
right.
instead
The
of that
only
money going towards it, you can actually put this money towards book two.
Exactly. So what I'm gonna use
Nice.
the funds for from the Kickstarter are just for the printing cost, because printing books is, depending on how many copies you get and things like that. That could
Yeah.
be set, $400 or $500, and then whatever other money I have left will be then used to start funding the art for issue two.
Nice. Nice. I like it. I like it.
So, and that was, like I
Um,
said, I owe that tip to Brandon, from Dismay Comics. He does a lot of that, because his last Kickstarter, I think his goal was $500, and I was like, "There's no way you can produce a comic book for $500." And he's like, "No," he says, "I self fund, and then I just use the Kickstarter to help recoup and use it for printing, and so that then he has physical copies and he sells at cons and things like that." And so,
nice.
yeah, it was a big tip, that he gave me, that, like I said, was really helpful, because I know I've backed Kickstarters where, um, you know, they'll collect the money, the campaign's over, but you won't see the product for 6 months.
Yeah. Yeah.
So
Let me ask you this: when people do sit there, because I know sometimes people have like other kind of incentives to be able to back and stuff like that. When people do back the doc, how much longer do people have to back the doctor? And are they just getting the book whenever they back it? Or are there other incentives to be able to pick up? Like, I know some people offer ratios. I didn't know if that was a thing.
right.
Like, are there anything else that people can look forward to possibly back?
So there's 10 days left. It finishes up June 2nd, which is a Sunday. So a week
Okay.
from this coming Sunday. And then there are three different covers. So we have an A cover, a B cover, and a C cover. So that's part of the rewards within the Kickstarter campaign is that you can choose which cover you want, or there's
Nice.
a reward that gives you all three covers. So you'll get three copies of the book with each of the three different covers. Um,
Okay.
that was one of the things I tried to just keep it simple from a tier or reward perspective within the Kickstarter. Just
Yeah.
to I didn't I've seen I looked at a lot of different campaigns and different rewards that people were offering, and I really wanted to kind of keep it simple for the first one, and just like I said, it's really kind of a learning process on my side to see what people like and what they don't like, and
Yeah.
so kind of fine tune it as I move forward.
Nice. Wilbur is in the house. What's going on, sir?
Right.
Appreciate you coming out. Cyclotronic Squirt Gun. Appreciate you coming and hanging out with us this evening. Let's see if anybody else has any other questions that's going on. First, I don't. I think. Oh, I'm so far behind. Oh, we've got a question. Question: How do you find a printer? What sort of conditions do they have? Nice question. Nice question.
So there are a few different comic book printers. The printer that I'm going to use is Comics Wellspring. So they produce regular floppies, graphic novels. They print a bunch of other things as well. But they are a printer that I've seen others use and have physical
Okay.
books. So I like the quality of their printing. So basically, the way it works is I'll have to submit the complete book, in a certain file format, and
Mm-hmm.
then they'll print me a proof. So they'll print it and then send it to me, a physical bound comic book, and just make sure that everything looks good. And then if
Yeah.
everything's good, they'll print the full amount of copies that I'm getting. If there's issues, then we work back and forth and get things corrected before they print the complete run of books.
Okay. Do you get an option as far as like paper and stuff like that, or is there like different tiers when you're
Yeah,
talking to a printer?
yeah, no, you can do different options. Glossy covers, cardstock covers, different. Um, well, I'm drawing a blank on the quality of the paper. There's different options,
Mm-hmm.
right? And so, and then obviously, the more you print, the cheaper it gets. But there are different, a bunch of different options that you can go with. I'm going to go with just a standard, a high, I don't want any of those wavy Marvel covers on any of my books. So, I'm going to go with a good quality, paper stock for the covers, the back cover, and
Nice.
yeah. So
From the preview that I've seen, this looks to be a colored book. I know a lot of independent books will sometimes go black and white, especially on their first go around to kind of save on cost. Can we anticipate this to be a color printing whenever it is distributed?
yes, yes, yeah. I mean, when I looked at the numbers through them printing wise, there wasn't a big difference in cost
Really?
from color to black and white to color, and so
Okay.
um, I don't even know. I mean, there's certainly savings if you print it in black and white, but um, it wasn't that big of a deal where I thought I'd much rather have it in color than black and white.
Okay. Nice. Nice. Um, Bottom tier says I've backed a Kickstarter and an Indiegogo book. They can go nuts with their awards. Let me ask you this: as far as with the books coming out, since it's already funded and everything like that, for the most, I know you've met your goal, but you already self funded it, and you're going above and beyond now, which is amazing. How long can people expect for the books to start churning out once your Kickstarter is over?
So I'm hopeful that the Kickstarter ends on a Sunday, June 2nd. I'm hopeful that I'll have everything. Uh, there is the only gotcha in that is that there is a rewards tier that is um, has been backed by several people. That is, they get a mention in the book and in the back cover, and so
Oh,
I have to collect that information. So hopefully, I get that. I'm going to actually start reaching out to those backers now, so that I can get that information. So they could get a little word, a blurb, their logo, whatever they really want. So I need to collect all that and get that put together on the back cover. So that's really my only lead time that I have when it closes. Then I need to get that to the printer. They'll print a proof, and then we'll go from there. So I'm hopeful that by like mid July we'll actually have the physical books. Based
nice.
on the printer's lead time, it's about 3 weeks right now. So um, I'm anticipating that we'll have the books by physical books shipped by mid July.
Nice, nice.
Yeah.
So will you be having to be doing all the shipping, or will they ship it out to the individual homes these are going to?
I think they can, but there's a cost savings if you do it yourself. So and I'm
Okay.
selling books over the years, right? Not an issue with
Yeah.
printing labels and packing things up in Gemini mailers, things like that. So I'm going to
Yeah.
do that for this round. And again, it's going to be a learning experience. See how it goes. How much of a is it a big headache? Should I just pay somebody to do it, or can I handle it myself? I mean, I think I'm at 43 backers right now. So basically, worst case, I'll have to get 43 Gemini mailers out to people. So not
Yeah.
not a big deal. I have a label printer at home, and Kickstarter helps you with collecting addresses, and they have um, some of the mailing options within. They partner with a few um, shipping partners to be able to get a
Okay.
discount on labels and things like that. So
Yeah. Nice.
yeah.
Nice. Dale asked if there'll be any blank covers available.
No, not for this. We didn't do. I mean, I could do one, but I didn't. I actually didn't even consider that.
There you go. Something to think about.
No.
Something to think about. How crazy is it going to be if somebody sends your book in to be graded? Like, how hyped are you going to be? Or are you gonna even gonna be hyped? Like, is that a thing where, like I could see me doing a book, and like if somebody was like, "Yo, I got this graded," I'd be like, "Oh my gosh!" Like somebody loved it that much to get it graded. Like that would be insane to me.
Well, it's interesting because one of the artists that did one of the covers did the A cover is a friend of my daughter's, college friend, very talented artist,
Oh,
and he actually
nice.
works at CGC.
Oh, cool.
So he's already looking to get me to sign it, and he's going to do a signature series at CGC.
Yes.
So yeah, so I think there's going to be some slab books.
That's
But
awesome.
again, it's his cover, so it's his artwork. So he wants to,
Right.
yeah, yeah.
But that's
So
so cool though. Oh my
yeah,
gosh.
so that's pretty cool. That's cool. And I actually the so my daughter is an artist as well, and she's working on a cover for me. So we may have a fourth secret cover that could be hitting um, the printing as well. So I'm just giving her some time to get it done.
That's great. That's great. So I noticed, I assume, anyways, the one cover that you've kind of been showing off, it looks like it's an homage to Wolverine #1. Is that, am I
Yes. Yeah.
correct? And
Yep.
was that his choice or was that yours?
No, that was my choice. I like that cover.
Yeah, yeah.
So I always like that Wolverine cover. I've seen a few. There's been a lot of homage covers of that. I think the was it Boba Fett or Mandalorian? There was one Star Wars cover. Same thing with him.
I'm trying to think now.
Yeah, I
Yeah.
think it was. I think it was because it was like one of the bounty hunter covers, and it was Boba Fett that was in that same. And so I just figured, why don't we try to do one cover, a homage cover like that, because at least it will be something people are familiar with.
Right. Right.
And then the other covers were kind of just I worked with the artist to come up with the other covers, because one of the things I've heard discussed about covers these days is that a lot of covers are just static covers. They may be of the character, or DNA does a lot of just the main character, cover,
Yeah. Yeah.
um, and not there's not a lot of action covers.
Okay.
So I wanted to have most of the cover. The two other covers are action covers, right? There's something, there's characters, you know, within action or part of the story that, so that's kind of what I wanted to do with those covers. Um, but I just, I've been using the homage cover as kind of the, um, advertising of it because it's just I think it's familiar to people, right? So people might
Right.
see it and be like, "Oh, that's that looks like the Wolverine cover," and so. But I think all three covers are really good.
Okay. Are there plans to, as you do more homages to other type characters like that in issues 2 and 3? Because like I was kind of hoping you'd go 4 and you just do the whole Wolverine gambit
That's a good
like
idea.
that.
That's a good idea. Yeah. Um, I haven't really thought that far on covers for issue 2 or 3, but that's you guys are giving me great ideas. Blank cover, continue the Wolverine homage covers. Yeah, I like these ideas.
Nice, nice. Psychotronic Squirt Gun is on it. Says Brian. Dr. Mike Miller seems like a tight character. I never jumped on a Kickstarter, but I will later, bro. You got
Thank you.
until
Thank you.
the 1st of June. It ends the 2nd. So, yeah, there you go. There's the timeline on that. Cliff on Comics says he approves of this homage cover. So, there you go. And Mr. Akins just echoes what Cliff said. So, nice. Nice. All right, then. Well, is there anything else that you'd like to add towards your book that's coming out or the Kickstarter or anything like that?
Just a big thank you to everybody who supported it so far. I mean, it was, I reached out to, a few people in the community, hey, saying, hey, would you mind having me on your show,
Mm-hmm.
your live stream, and everybody, yes, when do you want, when do you want to get together? So I've been on a bunch so far, here with you tonight. I'm going to
Yeah.
be on a few others coming up, Gary B next week and Scott Vaughn,
Okay.
on Monday. K-pop, I'm going to actually be on her channel as well. And so, it's just been I'm not surprised that the community's jumped on and backed it, but it's still, it's just nice to know that, people have your back. And I really do appreciate, people supporting it. Certainly when you throw something out there that you've done yourself and there's money, associated with it, right?
Mm-hmm.
People, backing it. It's been a great, a great feeling to have that support from the community. So
That's what I was gonna say. I imagine it's just the feeling, just the overwhelming feeling of just the support from everybody. That really is nice to see. With
yeah,
something
yeah,
that's
no, it's
coming from
been
you.
yeah. Like I said, I'm not surprised, but I am surprised, right? Not surprised because the community is such a is so supportive of one another, and between AOKs and giveaways and all the things that the community does. But when you're putting something out there like this, with a Kickstarter where somebody's got to, slap down a credit card or a debit card, it's a
Yeah.
little bit different than jumping on a stream, giving them a like, and you know what I mean. So it
Yeah.
you know like I said, it's hard to describe. I'm not surprised, but it's still an amazing feeling to know that people are supporting me and the things that I'm working on. So
Yeah. Yeah. So you've got. I assume K-pop would be this Sunday.
yes, K-pop on Sunday, Scott on Monday, and Gary on Thursday.
Okay, and that gets close to when it's ending out that weekend,
Yes,
correct?
yes,
And then I know that you were on Philtastics Live this past Saturday.
yes.
Okay, is there anybody else before that that you
Yeah,
may
so
have
I
been
was
on that you
on.
know of?
I was on. I'm drawing a blank on the show name with Circumstance and Lorenzo on
Okay,
their Wednesday show. I was on with the Council of Comics on Monday on their stream.
nice.
Yeah, so
Yeah.
yeah, it's been like I said. Anybody I've reached out to has been, you know, you know, welcome me on their show or their live stream. And then everybody's, anytime I pop into the chat, people are talking about it or highlighting it Legion of Comics, and just yeah, it's like I said, it's been a little bit overwhelming with the support, which is what
Overwhelmed
is
with the
that? What is
support, Marcus.
right? I was on FOC and Chill on
Oh,
Tuesday.
nice,
Yeah. So
nice.
yeah, I've been making the rounds, making sure I'm popping in here and there, and you know,
Yeah,
so
good deal. Well, I just wanted people to know those other ones to be able to go back, because if there's something that I missed, like I know that you and Phil had a conversation. I watched that whole thing because I didn't necessarily want to repeat some of the stuff that y'all
right,
said,
I got you. Yeah,
but at
yeah.
the same time, there's some stuff I did want to hit on. And so, like, I want people to go back and watch some of those things and, like, get as much information as they can, because it is coming up soon. So make sure if you want to back this, you actually don't procrastinate. Get on this if you're going to get on it.
Well, I'm
So,
interested to sit down. I mean, I'm interested to sit down with all of the other shows coming up. But K-pop really just focuses on artists and creators, and
mm-hmm.
so I'm excited to sit down with her because I feel
Yeah.
like she may ask a question that maybe others haven't asked me, just because she's so in tune with those type of interviews with
Right.
Kickstarters and things like that. So
Yeah.
definitely excited to sit down and chat with her. So.
Awesome. Awesome. What else do you got going on with your channel or the CBC Awards or IG? I don't know. You got so much shit going on, Brian. Hot
I
damn.
know, I
Like,
know. I'm doing too much. Um, but no, we moved my Saturday show, the Saturday live stream, from Saturday to Sunday. So I'm on Sunday morning. I'll be live this Sunday, 9:45, Breakfast with Brian, and then we mentioned all the other shows. Comic Book Community Awards kick off the 15th of June. Not open nominations. That actually happens to be the weekend of Heroes Con. So I'll be hanging out at Heroes Con with like half of the community. There's like a group of like 50 people that are going. So I'm really excited about that because it's going to be
nice.
community in person overload, and like I said,
Right.
I got my sights set on a couple big books. So I like counseling superheroes. Yes. Yeah, the LCS has a lot of um, I think Phil Tastic said it's linguine clam sauce. Loves I like to think of it as loves collecting Spidey. But yeah, there's
Yes.
a lot of different acronyms you can use.
Oh, I snatched up that Saturday morning like a true.
Yeah. He was like Cliff was like one of those sketchy women on Instagram sliding into your DMs. He was right in there.
That's fantastic. Oh, nice, nice. All right. Well, thank you so much, Brian, for coming and hanging out with me this
Yeah.
evening and
Thanks
talking
for
not
having me.
only the doctor but your PC as well, man. I love hearing about how focused you are on Spider-Man now, and how you've gone from jumping back in the hobby to being overloaded, which I feel like I can relate to, because I was the same way. Like, I was just collecting a bunch of shit that I was just like, because I
Yeah.
was just overwhelmed with like what all there was and what all there could be and stuff like that, to like finally just recentering and being like, all right, I need to focus on this Iron Man, in my experience anyways.
Right.
Whereas you, it's Spider-Man. So but yeah, it's yeah, I appreciate you, man. Thank you. This has been awesome. So, like I said earlier on in the show, all his links will be down in the description below. We're talking the Kickstarter is down there, so go check that out. His link to his YouTube is down there. His IG is down there. The Comic Book Community Awards IG is down there. I believe the website is down there as well. I don't know what all I put on there, but there's a lot on there, because Brian's doing a lot of shit, y'all. So y'all
I
need
got
to
a lot
send
of
him some
links.
praises, right? I should have just put a link tree in there. Is what I should have done, and just just
Be
just
done
send
with
them
it.
all there. But yo, thank you so much. I greatly appreciate you. Y'all go support Brian in all of his efforts that he's doing and all the things that he's doing. Are there any more spots available for the CBC Awards? Like, are there any more?
Yeah, sponsorship wise, yeah, we still have
Yeah,
a few spots, left. So if anybody's interested, just hit me up.
there you go. There you
Yeah,
go.
let me
Check
know.
them out. You can hit them up on IG. Next up, we'll be having Mr. Akins. What's on the comic rack? That'll be 2 Thursdays from now. So come back and join us then. And
Oh, very
until then,
nice.
as always, y'all have a good one.
Thanks, friend.